Are you ready for the big day coming up, Christmas? Or have you sent Santa your letter yet?
I've sent Santa my letter. Um, it has not come back, so I'll probably have to make some moves of my own. But aside from that, I am ready to have some R&R, get to see some family again, and enjoy this little break for Christmas.
I'm right there with you, man. And just in case if anyone needs to hear this, and they're like, "Holy crap! It's December 23rd, man, and Christmas is 2 days away, and I haven't sent Santa my letter. I haven't made any Christmas purchases yet. What, like, oh my God! Well, friendly word of advice: Santa is a busy man. He has no time to play. He's got millions of stockings to fill on Christmas Day. You better write your letter now and mail it right away because he's getting ready his reindeer and his sleigh.
Or to put it simply, you better watch out.
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on all sides of planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is we go from Ukraine and we travel to Uganda, but we take the long way around. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This, and it is hosted by two dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I am the one. I am the only. I am the one who turns on the TV. Right, James Kearns?
I am the one, the only, the what the hell is that a reference to? Matthew James Durzek? No, seriously, what's going on over there? I feel like I feel like you played yourself on that one. I'm not sure what happened.
We've been having troubles with our TV. Like, next time that yins are down this way, you're going to notice that we got a new TV. It's just, we've had troubles turning it on because it'll turn on and then turn off. But for some reason, like, I'm stubborn enough to get it to work, so I've been the one who's been able to turn on the TV.
Fair. So yeah, that's just life being what it is. As for this podcast being what it is, if you have not listened to this podcast before and you wonder what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, what we do is we listen to this, and what this is usually a music album. That either Ryan or I choose. We'll go by it track by track, line by line, note by note. Pick out the songs we like, the songs that we don't like, if those songs exist within the context of the album. We will talk about things that stand out, things that could have been stood out more. And at the end, we will give it a rating and recommend another album based on the album that we just talked about. And speaking of albums that we have talked about, Ryan, what did we talk about last time?
So we traveled back to the year of 1959. And in that year, we discussed what I would consider to be like the most phenomenal, the most titanic jazz album of all time. And that album, for those of you who are just wondering where I'm going with this, that album is Kinda Blue, and it was released by Mr. Jazzman Pants himself, Miles Davis. And for me, it was a blast, diving into that record with you. It's always a favorite record of mine. It's one of the first records I ever owned, and I owned it. Like, I wrote a college paper on it. So that gives you any indication of my relationship with the album, there you go. And yeah, that was the 10th installment in my mini series that is going to be concluding with our next review, but more on that much later in the episode here. Matthew, I'm going to turn it back over to you, though. What was your feelings about, doing Kinda Blue by Miles Davis? Did it leave you kind of blue, or were you kind of hyped about it?
I was rather hype about it because that to me was one of the, much like you, one of the first jazz albums I really ever got into many years ago. And it was very nice to revisit it once again and really go over some of the more intricate details that I had not picked up on before. So, yeah, it was a good time. Always glad to talk a little about Miles Davis, now that we've done it twice on the show. So if you want to go back and listen to the Kind of Blue episode, or perhaps the other Miles Davis episode, listen to them both, you can. We'll tell you later on in the episode how you can do that. So yeah, it was a really, really fun episode.
Absolutely, man. And for those of you out there who listened to the end of that episode or haven't, well, first of all, welcome, or, thank you for checking out this episode here. But at the end of that episode, you gave me the choice in terms of where to go next for our what is actually going to be our last review, our last episode of 2025. Crazy to think about that. You gave me the choice between picking the years actually of 2025 and year zero, and you caught me off guard with year zero, so I chose that because I'm curious, man. And for the listeners out there who did not, stay tuned to the end of that episode, or can't read the title of the episode that we're talking about that you're listening to right now. Matthew, why don't you tell me, the listener, and everybody else out there who cares, what are we covering this week? Because I think I'm prepared, but I don't know.
So when you picked year zero, what it ends up becoming is a discussion of our first ever Christmas album here on Hey Listen to This, because year zero, birth of Christ, BC, AD, get there in the middle, it's year zero. And the album that we're going to be covering this week is called, it goes under a couple titles, but I'll go with the more commonly known one, which is A Christmas Gift for You from Phil Spector. And this is the first time also, not only are we doing a holiday or Christmas album, we're also doing a compilation album, because these are not all the same artists. These are different artists over the course of this album. And for those of you wondering out there what a Phil Spector is, first let me address those who already know a little bit of that answer and say that yes, Phil Spector, when you look at his entire life on this earth, was not a good person. He did some very bad things. He was a convicted murderer. He was a terrible husband. And he used guns a lot. And that's a lot of details about the man that you can, talk about or find in your later decisions. But for the case of this review, we are not going to go past into that. We're going back to the past, rather, and discuss when he was in his 20s running a record production company all his own, and, for the record, making hit after hit after hit. But to start, Phil Spector grew up and decided that he wanted to play music, and he started out as a singer-songwriter in the 50s for an artist. He joined a band called the Teddy Bears that would end up having their number one hit in 1958, entitled To Know Him Is to Love Him. Sort of very sweet, sort of late 50s doo-wop type of thing. Spector co-wrote it, so already he had written a number one hit. And over the course of the next few years, he would get more into producing and more into songwriting as well. He co-wrote the song Spanish Harlem, if you ever heard that version by Benny King, or the Aretha Franklin version. He played guitar for the Drifters on their song On Broadway. But his big thing was in 1961 starting what was called Phil's Records, or Phillies Records. It's spelled Philes, or for those of you baseball fans, Phillies without the second I. So he started Phillies Records, and once he did that, he did what John Lennon would later claim was to keep rock and roll alive while Elvis was in the army. That's what John Lennon said of Phil Spector. Now, why would he say that? Well, during that time, he had several hit songs for several different artists. Some of the biggest ones including He's a Rebel, which is credited to the Crystals, but was actually performed by Darlene Love, both of whom appear on this album. He went to number 2 in 1963 with the song Be My Baby by the Ronettes. He went to number 8 with Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans, with a cover of the Disney song Zippity Doo Dah. He had a hit that went to number 3 from the Crystals, this time for real, with the song To Do Ron Ron. And those are just the biggest ones. You could also talk about songs like Then He Kissed Me, or any others that may come across. One of the more controversial ones was He Helped Me and It Felt Like a Kiss. You also have Walking in the Rain, The Best Part of Breaking Up, and just songs of that nature. And then later on, he would go on to produce records for the Righteous Brothers, and yes, that includes all the big ones like You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin' and Unchained Melody. And not only did he have big hits, he also established what we've talked about in past episodes, particularly on the Pet Sounds episode covering the Beach Boys, creating what was called the Wall of Sound, which, to put it simply and somewhat disrespectfully, was basically him saying, hey, you know how they have like strings and also rock guitars and drums? What if we just put them together and made it sound even bigger than usual? Now, that's not all he did. He also did a lot of work with, orchestration and reverb and stuff like that. So that's what he became known for. And not only that, he brought on what he would call the Wrecking Crew. And some of the more prolific studio musicians of the 1960s, we're talking drummer Hal Blaine, who we've talked about before, bassist Carol Kay, who we've talked about before, Tommy Tedesco, Larry Knechtel, Earl Palmer, Glenn Campbell, and Sonny and Cher were all part of the Wrecking Crew who backed up Spector's artists on these songs, and would do so for this album that we're going to talk about today. After this album, he would go on to have later success with the Beatles, Ike and Tina Turner, George Harrison, and the Ramones. And what makes this album interesting that we're talking about today, before we get into our own personal experiences with Spector's music, is that he was a successful singles artist for the most part. You know, I'm talking about, songs like He's a Rebel, Be My Baby. He never really made an album for his artist on his own record label until this one. The Christmas album was the first real time he decided to make an album worth of music, because he felt like singles were more profitable. And for the record, he was right, it being the early 60s. Albums really weren't a thing yet like they would be in the late 60s and throughout the 70s and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is a bit of an anomaly for Spector and an anomaly for us here at Hey Listen to This. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Now, before I go into my background on Spector's music, Ryan, I throw it over to you. What is your experience with Phil Spector and or his music?
So, yeah, I hate to be so brief with this, but like up until the moment that I listened to this album here for the purposes of the review, like I never really registered as anything being like a Phil Spector, project or anything like that. Like a couple of things that you mentioned, like obviously I have ears. I've been alive for 35 years. That kind of rhymed. Look at that, man. I've heard Unchained Melody. I've heard of the Ramones. So like a lot of the things that you mentioned already, like I'm like, yeah, hey, I heard of that. I mean, obviously we covered the Beach Boys with Pet Sounds, and also we've talked about the Beatles before, but like a lot of the stuff that you already mentioned, I already I have listened to. But in terms of like knowing about Phil Spector, knowing about like what he's touched, and actually identified him as he was responsible for this piece of work here. Like I'm coming at this like a baby, man. Like I didn't even know about what Phil Spector, like his personal life, prior to bringing up everything to my wife yesterday for the purposes of talking about what we're covering here today. And like she told me about it, I'm like, oh, okay. And it's actually kind of a fun fact, ladies and gentlemen. If you Google Phil Spector, in his description, they include that he's a convicted murderer. So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah. So I'm gonna flip it back to you, Matthew. What is your relationship with Mr. Spector? And like, I'll even expand the question to you. What is your relationship with Christmas music as a whole? Because this is a genre of music that we've yet to cover on Hey Listen to This, and yeah, I'm just curious to hear what your opinion is.
So I'll start with Phil Spector, and my exposure to him sort of came through my brief period, as I've talked about before, when I first started getting into oldies music, and I started listening to stations like 3WS, and I would hear some of these songs like You've Lost That Loving Feeling, like Be My Baby, like He's a Rebel, etc., etc., back when that station played 60s music. They really don't do that anymore, but that's another topic for another day. And I remember just liking the songs. I never really put two and two together, like, oh, this was done by that guy, and this was done by this person. No, no, no. I just thought, that's a cool song. And then later on, I would discover that my dad actually has a lot of these 45s in a package that I guess he bought where they came in colored vinyl. And I was like, ooh, that's cool, colored vinyl. And then I listened to the songs like, so these are all the same guy. The same guy did all of these. And then that kind of just, increased my appreciation for what Spector did as a music producer, not as a human being. And after that, I just kind of left it at that until sort of taking a bigger listen to the songs off this album for the Christmas season. Because once again, I started putting two and two together. It's like, oh, he did that one, and he did that one too. And as far as Christmas music, it's a little weird because I started out, going to church and singing, the typical Christmas hymns, whether it's Joy to the World or O Come All Ye Faithful, in my children's choir at St. Rose of Lima in Darlington, or South Beaver, whatever you want to call it. And not really getting into the secular side of things until much later. And I will bear this disclaimer beforehand, because I understand that Christmas music can mean a different wave of emotions for so many different people. I have only worked about 11 months out of my life in retail. So my experiences with Christmas music might be a little bit more positive than some others. So it has not been beaten into me sideways. It has not been shoved down my throat. So a little bit of a spoiler there, but I do understand why some may have the negative reaction to hearing the same 5 or 6 or 12 songs ad nauseum over the course of 8 hours, over the course of 5 days, over the course of a month, etc. But that being said, Christmas music, I've always appreciated it for what it is, except when it isn't what it is, and it just kind of sucks. So yeah, that's my very brief, very broad overview of my appreciation of both Phil Spector and Christmas music.
And for me, like, I feel like I gotta give, like, my feelings about Christmas music as a whole before diving into the review here. So, for those of you who aren't aware or who don't know me personally, I, unlike Matthew, have spent a good majority of my life actually working in retail. And I guess, like, technically my job now isn't retail per se, but my coworker loves Christmas music, so I hear a lot of it throughout the day. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's fine. I've actually kind of, like, grown accustomed to the fact, due to, like, my many years working at Home Depot, how, like, they flip on the Christmas music during Black Friday and keep it going until, like, the day after Christmas. Like, I've learned the ability to, like, just tune out background music like that. And, like, it's a very essential skill that I've come to love. But, like, in terms of, like, people getting upset about Christmas music, people, like, getting very passionate about Christmas music, like, the only thing I can kind of equate it to is, like, my feelings on, like, how people get either really upset or really in love with pineapple on pizza. Like, some people think it's an abomination and it's a thief of joy. Some people think it's, like, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And here I'm thinking, it's fine. Like, I'm sure if I ever have pineapple on pizza, I won't want to throw myself in the river of Jordan. But I don't really get particularly jazzed about Christmas music as a whole. So like whenever you put this album up for contention, I was like, pretty curious about like, what my reactions were gonna be. So yeah. That being said, though, I feel like we are properly in the holiday spirit, you and I. And I say let's dive into this Christmas gift from Phil Spector here, as morbid as that sounds, with the opening track here being White Christmas. Matthew, take it away, sir.
Yes, White Christmas, and I will mention the artist that does the song piece by piece because, again, these are all by different artists at different times. This version of White Christmas is performed by Darlene Love, and right away you could tell that she is singing her ass off on this song. I mean, Darlene Love really has never gotten the credit that bands like the Ronettes or even the Crystals have because her actual solo discography is limited to a couple of minor hit singles and songs off this album that we'll get to. But here she is singing very strongly, and she is very much driving the engine that this song is. And the Wrecking Crew is keeping up with her at every single pace. They're very much laying back, creating a sort of sweep and ease that has a very relaxed feel to it, but they're not being lazy about it. Like, they're definitely providing a big sound without providing a sound that punches you in the face. So it makes for a different type of arrangement of White Christmas, comparatively speaking. The interlude section that takes place during this song, however, is a little weird. Not bad by any means, but very weird. Because I don't know of too many editions of White Christmas that have a talking interlude in there, let alone this one where Darlene Love is lamenting in spoken word about how it's December 24th and there is no snow on the ground and woe is me. So, granted, this was in the teen drama era of pop music where spoken word became a lot more commonplace. So I can forgive it for that. And as far as lyrical content, I mean, it's White Christmas. I don't necessarily think we have to dive heavily into it. I mean, for those of you who don't know, it's a song about someone dreaming of a white Christmas, but they can't because they live where snow does not snow. So overall, my thoughts about White Christmas is that it's a really good start to the album and really showcases what we're in for as far as both the instrumental performances by the Wrecking Crew and the vocal performances by Darlene Love. In the annals of Christmas music, I would not put this necessarily higher than either the Bing Crosby or the Drifters version for those of you who've ever watched Home Alone. But this is a very good start to the album nonetheless. It is not in my top three. And for full disclosure, I have a top 3 and I have a bottom 1.
So, yeah, for me, like a lot of the things that you mentioned with your take on this song here. One, I think it's going to be, I don't want to say refreshing, but like just a different kind of review for us in that we're covering a lot of songs that a lot of people already know. We don't need to do a lyrical dissection on Santa Claus is Coming to Town or Sleigh Ride. Like, it's pretty much straightforward as a whistle, man. But yeah, a lot of things that you mentioned, though, I agree with you on. Like, the first thing I noticed coming right out of the gate is like, and I do believe, I mean, Phil does specifically say this in the very last song on the album, but like I do believe throughout the whole album here, Phil was looking to do like a different take on Christmas traditional music. So, and I applaud him for that. And with White Christmas here, like as opposed to like the Drifters or like the old timey Bing Crosby take that everyone basically knows. Like I think it's the most famous take out there. Like you get a fun kind of groovy kind of take, and I appreciate that. And like the performance from Miss Darlene Love here is pretty spot on. Like for me, it's not over the top, but it still gets the job done. It's very enjoyable. Like Yeah, it's just a solid vocal performance, and I do enjoy it. And I agree with you that spoken word middle section is a little bit of a left field turn, and it does throw me off, but it's not bad. It doesn't take away from the experience of the track here. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I did enjoy the horn swells that you find throughout the song itself, and the offbeat hits from the horns, that was very effective as well. So what the backing band's doing here, the wrecking crew's doing, is pretty solid and spot on. Throughout the rest of the review, as we'll dive into different tracks, it gets out of my opinions about what they're bringing to the table, obviously. But for wrapping up my take on White Christmas, yeah, it didn't land in my top three. And like you, I do have a top three in this review here. But unlike you, I have a bottom two.
Mm, a bottom two. Okay, so a little bit of spice in the Christmas stocking for this episode. I can appreciate that. Although I always say we're definitely in agreement that White Christmas is a solid, good start to the album. Not necessarily one that is a super standout type of track. So, that being said, I am ready if you are to move on to Frosty the Snowman, performed by the Ronettes.
So yeah, the next track being Frosty the Snowman. So, and this is like you said, it's performed by the Ronettes, and yeah, so yeah, right out of the gate, something I noticed about this track is I did enjoy the very bright opening that you get with the keys, and I feel like the sleigh bells that were used in this track here were a very nice touch. It very much gets you in that holiday spirit, man, and yeah, and then what is I want to say another thing I noticed with this song here specifically, and this will be one of the I think the many times I might point this out in this review, is that the drums here, they're very much going hard in the paint. Somebody obviously did not tell that drummer that this was a Christmas album, and that person did not need to go as hard in the paint as they would have to for I don't know, like a hardcore punk show, or something that it required all this extra effort. Or one could make the argument that, hey, the holiday spirit was just with that drummer, and they just went with it. Either way, I appreciate what's going on here. It's pretty cool. The vocals are here. The vocals here are solid, and I did enjoy the use of the backing vocals here. It did add a nice, interesting layer to the overall experience, and we're gonna find this a lot in a lot of the tracks here, but this is the first instance of the instrumental section echoing the melody of the song. It's almost acting as its own bridge, or it's just a nice passage, and a nice little texture to the song. It's always a good thing for me to enjoy as a music listener. And ladies and gentlemen, we've come across a Ryan Kern's musical kink here with Frosty the Snowman, in that you get that start effect. So I'm always a fan of that. So yeah, I'm walking away from Frosty the Snowman. I think I'm a little higher on it than White Christmas, but not so high enough to throw it in the top three spot, which might be a little bit of a spicy take coming from my camp here, because any song that would incorporate a musical kink usually gets an automatic ranking in a top three. But you know what? I'm feeling a little different, feeling a little spicy here today, man. So yeah, what's your thoughts about Frosty the Snowman?
Well, my thoughts about Frosty the Snowman, first of all, again, I come into this with a little bit more experience with Phil Spector's music than you do, and immediately I was able to tell, even after so many listens of it in the past, for the sake of reviewing, I could tell immediately that Phil Spector was trying to sort of emulate the sound that he had with his biggest hit, or one of his biggest hits, in Be My Baby, which to me is never a bad thing, because that song, to me, is one of the best pop songs of all time. So he's trying to go with that with the very flamenco-esque orchestration, and like you say, Hal Blaine on the drums. That's just how Hal Blaine drums with Phil Spector. Like, he is big, loud, and unafraid to hit the drums like they owe him money. Like, he is very much in command of the song, and those drums are just so good. Um, the Ronettes themselves sound great as well. Ronnie particularly sounds very strong on this. The backup vocals, I agree with you, are a very nice touch. Um, I did appreciate the stop, like you mentioned. I thought that was very cool too. And the way that the string section has that little solo, once again, reminiscent of Be My Baby, and once again, not a bad thing. Uh, so yeah, I did appreciate the song a lot. I think I might be a little bit higher on it than you, because full disclosure, this is not in my top three either. But this was probably the most decisive cut I had to make. Like, I had to decide between this and another song for that number three spot, and I just couldn't give this one the knock. Maybe because I know what it was trying to go for, and I appreciate what it was trying to go for. But for other reasons, I will explain why other songs got higher than this later on.
I'm curious to see where our top three, like, like if we're gonna be in alignment or not, because, like, full disclosure, like, my top song in this review here, it's the one that gets me most in the holiday spirit. Like, it's just full, yeah, Christmas spirit, holiday spirit, activate. Oh my God, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Let's rev up that sleigh. But I digress, man. I can go ad nauseum about it. But yeah, yeah, I'm just curious, man, to see, like, how things align here. But yeah, speaking about alignment, I think we're both aligned with the fact that yeah, the next song here is The Bells of St. Mary. And why don't you tell the listener about the Bells of St. Mary? Because I've never heard of the Bells of St. Mary before this episode here.
I can't really say I have either. Like, this is not one of the more, in really either camp, the secular or the spiritual camp, one of the more popular Christmas songs of them all. So a very interesting choice by Spector here, to have this one performed by another group, Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans. And I will say this. The first thing I noticed is that this song sounds almost dead on like the song before it. Like, this feels like the same arrangement as Frosty the Snowman, just a little bit softer, which is not bad, but at the same time, it feels very... I don't want to call it lazy, but definitely feels like formulaic, if anything else. But what sets it apart is the song itself, which is more of a ballad on top of the beat, which is a very interesting and not bad decision by Spector. Bobby Soggs does a really good job singing the song, particularly whenever it gets to the high notes. He does a really good job, very reminiscent of someone like a Johnny Mathis or a Jackie Wilson when he sings. To me, the highlight of this track, though, comes towards the end, where you have the backup singers, his Blue Jeans, one of whom, by the way, is Darlene Love, so a little bit of interplay between different groups and different facets of this Phil Spector verse. Their call and response with the Wrecking Crew, particularly drummer Hal Blaine, where they sing da 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 da, and then you get that. That to me was really cool. I really like that, and to me that is, I don't. It's hard to say because it doesn't feel super Christmassy, but it does feel very Spector coded. And again, I tend to like Spector's musical moves most of the time, so I thought that was pretty good. And overall, I thought this song was pretty good. Not in my top three, not really particularly close, but definitely not bad enough to garner the bottom spot either. This track is solid and good.
So I'm going to start by saying, like, the one thing that you highlighted in your review, like, I'm in agreement with. Like, one of the highlights off of the track for me is, like, that counteracting of that interplay between the backing vocals and the drums, like the da 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 da, like that was an instant highlight for me. I did enjoy that 100%. And also, like, other things that I did enjoy about the song is like how the song starts. Like, it starts pretty nice with, like, the chimes going off, and like you get the horns as well. Like, it's very much reminiscent of like, oh hey, I'm literally listening to the bells of St. Mary going off. So like, that's pretty cool. I'm curious to know though, how the song normally sounds in a normal context, because for me, I struggled listening to the song otherwise, and it was for one main reason. Like, I just I struggled to enjoy the vocals, and it wasn't for the sake of a piss poor performance, because like they sounded good, but it's just they're struggling. Like, I can't find the melody here. It sounds very hapless and like very directionless, and that might be due to the fact of the arrangement being like, Phil trying to do one thing and the core of the song being something else. I don't know. Maybe like, after this review later on at night, when I'm like, watching the Battle of Alberta on TV, like, I might actually just listen to the Bells of St. Mary just to be like, hey, this is what it actually sounds like. But until then, yeah, I like outside of the vocals, like, I do enjoy what the song is bringing to the table. Like, I honestly feel like the instrumentals were doing a great job carrying the load of the song, because everything sounds very nice, very Christmassy. It really gets you in the holiday spirit. But then when you get a guy who is not singing a direct melody, and it's very like kind of directionless, like I described, it takes you right out of the moment, man. So yeah, I hate to say it, we've come across one of my bottom songs, and the Bells of St. Mary didn't take the throne, with it being my least favorite song off the record. However, it is my second least favorite song, though.
That is completely fair. And again, I just couldn't put myself to consider this a bottom track. Like, again, this was close. Like, this could have been a bottom track for me, but I couldn't really come across my way of like really disliking anything or saying, no, this isn't for me. Like, this is not a skip kind of track. But I do understand what you're saying, because again, I think the key issue with it is the fact that, once again, it feels like Spector is trying to pigeonhole what could be about. I could be wrong, because again, maybe I'll give that a listen later while you're watching Connor McDavid add to his point total against a very, very rough Flames team. But yeah, no, I think the issue is, again, they're putting sort of a ballad or a hymn atop this rock and roll beat, and I don't think it sounds that bad, but I understand why it could be off-putting, because it just feels like you're taking something slow and methodical and spiritual on top of something that is fast and secular and propulsive. So yeah, it does take things a step back, but not so far back that I'm like, no, I don't like this, because I thought it was all right. But that being said, I am ready, if you are, to pivot on over to the next track, which is the Crystals and their version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And I could see you stretching. This one's going to be a good one.
Well, I okay, like, full disclosure, this isn't my least favorite track here, so like, yeah, just my overall thoughts about like Santa Claus is Coming to Town, done by the Crystals, like this variation, it's a fun take, man. Like, traditionally you think about like, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, like you get the traditional melody, like, Santa Claus is coming to town, like, and it's like, if you do it pretty straight, it's a pretty effective Christmas song. But here, like, you get the intro that was a complete switch up from the traditional standard of doing the song, in that you get that lullaby, like an unpacking, and you get somebody like basically kind of like, it almost seems like they're talking to their kid about like, Santa Claus, and making sure like, hey, like, make sure that you write that letter to Santa. And for those of you who want to know what that sounds like, word for word, I'm going to do you a favor. Just roll back to the intro of this episode, and that's basically what I riffed on to introduce the episode here. Yeah. But yeah, after that intro is done, you get to switch into the main groove of the song, which was pretty effective. Like, I did enjoy that. That was very nice. I do enjoy, like, whenever you get that nice little flip. The vocals here, again, they're very solid. I do enjoy what's being brought to the table here. It's not so much like I off the top of my head, outside of the last track, I can't really think of any vocal performances that are really over the top on the execution front, but everything's pretty fine, like for the most part. And like the horns here are really good. I do enjoy the swells here, and we get a sax solo, which always speaks to my people. Like represent. We always look out for one another in the sax world there. And another highlight for me with Santa Claus is Coming to Town is you get that fun breakdown in the middle of the song. Like, they could have done the song straight after doing that, like, unique little, intro. But doing that little fun, like break up in the middle there, pretty effective. I did enjoy what was going on there. But yeah, overall, though, I will say that Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It did not land in my top 3, and obviously, didn't land my bottom track because otherwise, this take on that would be a little bit more, have a little bit more vinegar behind it. So, but yeah. Otherwise, yeah. What's your thoughts about Santa Claus Coming to Town?
My thoughts on Santa Claus is Coming to Town. First of all, I thought that intro was a little interesting. Definitely a twist on what you would expect, but again, early 60s, spoken word interludes, kind of the thing. If you don't believe me, check out songs like, Leader of the Pack by the Shangri-Las or Dead Man's Curve by Jan and Dean, just to name a couple. So yeah, that's kind of the style of the time, so I'll forgive it for that. I did think it was a little long in the tooth, but that's only because what comes after that is so upbeat. And this is the first version of the song with that more modernized refrain of Santa Claus is coming to town. Like, that wasn't in there before. Like, that was more or less, just Santa Claus is coming to town, like you would hear in the traditional Gene Autry version. Or whoever did it before this version. So I give Spector credit for coming up with this arrangement and making it one that would become later popularized by Jackson 5 or Bruce Springsteen, for example. The crystals on this track sound great. Their vocals are a little bit pushed to the front. I do wonder if that was intentional or just a technical thing. The Wrecking Crew sounds very, very good, and I did appreciate that sax solo, like you had mentioned. I just don't know if I would prefer this to the aforementioned versions I mentioned, because I think I would rather listen to the Springsteen version, as overplayed as it always will be, or the Jackson 5 version, which I think is probably the more superior of the 3. But this song does sound very, very, very good. Not good enough, however, to land in my top 3 either. This would probably be in the top half of the album, but not quite in the top 3.
And I feel like for me, I know that I didn't say this in my dissection about the track here, but like I feel like this could have been a top 3 track, but like the other songs are there for a reason. Obviously, when we get to them, we will get to them. But a couple things I do want to mention about like this whole review as a whole before we pivot on over to the next song being Sleigh Ride is this like. You mentioned how the vocals on Santa Claus is Coming to Town, like the vocals were almost kind of like, pushed a little bit more to the front, almost bleeding on the edge. I feel like, Phil Spector sometimes with this album here, he kind of does dabble in that. You ever see SpongeBob SquarePants, man?
Of course I have.
Okay. So that whole that episode where they are a marching band and
yes.
They do that whole thing of like, hey, let's try to play really, really loud so no one can hear our mistakes. Like, I feel like this album kind of pushes the edge of being that marching band in that second, in that instance.
That is a phenomenal reference, and I'm here for it 100% of the time. I don't completely disagree with that. Maybe that is a strategy that Spector was going for. But the problem with that theory is that, again, if not for the vocal mixing, everything, as far as pitch and delivery, it sounds really good. So I do appreciate the SpongeBob reference. I'm always down for a good SpongeBob reference. So yeah, if you are ready, we can pivot on over to the next track, which, like you said, is Sleigh Ride.
Yeah, man, take us on the sleigh ride, man. Tell us what the Ronettes are singing on the sleigh ride, my friend.
So this song, Sleigh Ride, first of all, even though this is an album that was released in 1963, and as many articles point out, mere days after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, this song, along with two others on this album, are currently on the Billboard charts right now. In fact, because we're recording this on Tuesday, December 23rd, the charts updated today, and right now this version of Sleigh Ride by the Ronettes is at number 12 on the charts. Like, it's 2 spots behind The Fate of Ophelia and one or 2 spots in front of Ordinary. So yeah, Christmas music, Christmas charts. Welcome to 2025, where nothing makes sense anymore. But in all seriousness, I can understand why this song is as popular as it is, because man, this is to me, like, unless you count the original instrumental version of Sleigh Ride by Leroy Anderson or anybody who's covered it, like the John Williams Orchestra. If you're counting just the vocal versions, this to me is the most iconic version of it. And Spector's arrangement, which includes the backup singers of the Ronettes, Nedra Talley and Estelle Bennett, going ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ding-dong-ding, is just pure genius. Like, if they had just cut it off with Ronnie singing the lead vocal and that's it, that'd have been fine. It would have been a fine song, but the call response with the ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ding-dong-ding, like, it just elevates the song to a whole new level. And not to mention, you get the little horse whinny at the top of the track, which is always cute. Hal Blaine, once again, doing some very underrated drum work with the way that he is shuffling the beat at the beginning. Really, really good. And I've talked about the string section already. I'm going to mention them again. That solo that they have, like, it's not often in pop music where you get a string solo that really captivates you and really pushes things forward, but this one does. Like, I can only think of one other song that does it, and fittingly enough, it's Be My Baby by the Ronettes. Yeah, the string section was great. The key changes are placed perfectly. It has that, very nice build and sort of interplay between, the background vocals, the instrumental, and Ronnie just sounding like pure velvet throughout this track. Like, she is singing just so, so well. This is one of those tracks that I think really defines this album. And for the first time in this review, we have entered into top 3 territory. I have Sleigh Ride in my top 3, and I have it at number 2.
Oh man. Okay, so that's a lot of pressure, man. I'll try to follow up like that excellent.
No pressure.
That
no
section.
pressure.
Well, I mean, it's not like you 100% gushed over it. Like, for those of you who want to hear Matt gushing 100% of, go back to our Bruce Springsteen episode and kind of zoom in on his discussion of Born to Run, and then actually see me pop his balloon with my review of that. But anyways, I'm not gonna pop the balloon here though, because Sleigh Ride is not my bottom track. Spoiler alert. But yeah, a lot of things that you mentioned about Sleigh Ride, though, I agree with you 100%. It could have easily been. I'm gonna put it in that category of tracks that could have popped into a top 3 spot. But the one of the things I'm going to mention right out of the gate that you highlighted with your dissection is that ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ding-dong-ding. That was just so hypnotic, so good, so effective. It could actually maybe bleed on the edge of annoying the crap out of people. And for those people who don't like pineapple on pizza and think it's an abomination on God's green earth and don't like Christmas music whatsoever, this song might not be for you. But for me, and obviously for Matt, that section there is a highlight for me. I enjoy that 100%. And also, the start of the song, you highlighted the horse sounds, coming right out of the gate. And the sleigh bell, like the horse sounds coming out of the gate. And I did enjoy the sleigh bells that really get you in the mood with everything. Very effective way to kick off the song. The one thing that really did speak to me though, I did enjoy what the drums were bringing to the table quite well as well. But when I hear a Barry sax, I hear the call of the wild, the brave, the few, the Barry sax players out there. So I always enjoy a good Barry player in a track. So we found that here, and also like you, I did enjoy the instrumental string section echoing the melody of the song. That was a solid moment. It's always a pleasant thing when it's executed pretty well. It does add a nice little filter, and throughout the whole track though, you can really just picture just being in a sleigh ride and just going down going through a countryside, while snow's on the ground while you're in a sleigh. I've done that one. No, that was a sled ride, not a sleigh ride. That's two different things. Have you ever done a sleigh ride, my friend? Have you ever gone through the countryside listening to the song?
I don't think I've ever gone through the countryside and listened to this song. I also don't think I've ever been on a sleigh itself. But I get what you're saying though, because we've watched television specials, we've seen what Santa's flying magical sleigh looks like, and you could definitely see this track just being sort of the Born to be Wild of sleigh writing songs because, well, it's right there in the title. So yeah, I can imagine Santa being on cruise control, listening to a song like this, and just mellowing out and letting his reindeer do their thing and just taking a quick break as he hovers over the Atlantic Ocean because I don't think he's dropping any presents there. All that to say that I get what you're saying.
Okay, cool. Yeah, otherwise, so I do enjoy what's being brought to the table here. It just doesn't do enough to pop into a top three. It doesn't pop the other three songs out of contention though. But yeah, it's a good song nonetheless, man.
Agreed. And as I mentioned, I do have it in my top three at number two. But I will throw it over to you to close out side A of this record with Marshmallow World, once again performed by Darlene Love.
Good old Darlene Love, man. So, yeah, Marshmallow World. I would say prior to doing this review, this song here specifically is the most notable, Phil Spector. Well, not Phil Spector coded song, but when I heard this song here specifically when I was doing my listens through the record, I'm like, hey, I know this song. This is the most famous version I know, man. So there we go. But yeah. With the Marshmallow World, you get a very nice, pleasant intro with the strings, and you also get the keys and horns coming in. It really does set the mood for a very big Christmas kind of song. And yeah, this song though just grooves. I appreciate what the whole sonic package is delivering to the listener, and it's really helped. Unlike the Bells of St. Mary that couldn't carry a tune to save its life, here you get a strong sense of melody with a Marshmallow World, and that helps the song out so immensely, and it's really a pleasant experience for me to listen to. And also, the backing band's doing a really solid job, just laying into the track and just having a really good time doing that. Vocals here are solid, and I do enjoy what the horns are bringing to the table as well. I will say though, on the plus side, there is a sax solo here that I do enjoy, but I can't help but notice that it kind of does sound very similar to the previous sax solo that we found earlier in the album. And also, one thing that you mentioned earlier in this review here is that one of the songs was sounding kind of similar to another version. Yeah, you kind of get this here. I kind of feel like we're still experiencing the same kind of take on stuff, which is it's Christmas music. There's only so much takes, so many takes that you can do on songs like this. And I would say a Marshmallow World isn't the one of the most iconic Christmas songs prior to doing the recording of this take on it. It's not like, Silent Night, Holy Night, and like Santa Claus is coming to town. So you don't really need to do a proper spin on it, but still, it just kind of seems like we've been here before. But I will say though, despite my criticism of that and being a little bit samey with its presentation, I really did enjoy the song, and it does really get me into the holiday spirit. Like, I can't lie, man. So much so that we've entered top tracks territories for me here, and a Marshmallow World did land in my top three. It is my third favorite track off the whole record.
I was wondering when we were going to get to your top three, because it felt like we hadn't gotten there yet, but now we have. So we have reached that little bit of snow at the mountaintop with Marshmallow World, at least for you. For me, though, I do like this song. I'm not as quite high on it as you. It is not in my top three. But there are some things about it I did really like. First of all, you mentioned that opening with the strings. I cannot unhear what I hear in that intro, and to me, I hear what was probably the inspiration for a song we talked about a few weeks ago, which was "You Still Believe in Me" by the Beach Boys. Like, I heard that string, I was like, wait a minute, I've heard this before. That sounds familiar. I hear those strings, and I think that may be where it's coming from. But then you get into the swing of the record, and I just think it sounds so good. Because, again, the Wrecking Crew sounds great, and Darling Love, for a song that, like you said, Ryan, is not necessarily in the upper echelon of Christmas tunes, either secular or spiritual. She is really selling the song as much as you can. Like, to me, this song doesn't necessarily elevate itself to like a Christmas classic, but within the context of being surrounded by so many Christmas songs, like, this feels like sort of a party song, if you will. Like, this is the kind of song you break out the punch bowl, you get out the crackers, and you get your cheeses ready, and you just put the record on, and this is the kind of record you would put on where everybody can sort of dance and twist and mingle and shingle, whatever. Just party on as they can. So, yeah. This is, to me, an album track, but not in the, oh, this is a boring track type of thing. To me, this is very much a song that fits on this album, does its job, and sounds very good while doing it. So not in my top three, but a solid track for Darling Love.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're in agreement, man. I'm curious to see what your bottom track is going to be, and if we're going to be sharing the same bottom track, because, yeah, spoiler alert, I feel like my bottom track is a little bit petty, but, I mean, it is what it is. But, anyways, before we do that, before we go into the back half of the record and discuss why childhood trauma is something to make a song about, and discuss the next track being "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus." Matthew, I have a question for you that I've been dying to ask you ever since Christmas last year, man.
Wow, that's a long time coming. So this must be a big question. What's in your bag of questions there, Ryan?
If the dear listener out there is very much enjoying what we're bringing here to the table with this this review here specifically, and they want to help show some support so they can keep us going week in and week out, pumping these episodes to them, delivering hot takes, spicy takes, Dijon mustard takes, and they want to help support us. What are some ways that they can help support us, and other ways that they can help connect with us? That way they can feel very close with us during this holiday season, man.
Well, the way they can keep on with what we're doing week in, week out is to keep on listening to Hey, Listen to This. And the way that they can do that, first, if you are into the audio side of things, you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple Music, you can find us on Pocket Cast, and pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts is where we're at. But if you like using YouTube for your podcast, we are on YouTube as well. We have our own YouTube channel where we upload our videos featuring our episodes every week. So that is a way you can reach out to us by listening to us on there. And if you like what you hear and you want to share it with somebody, but you're not sure who that somebody is, we are on social media as well. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Threads. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Blue Sky. And if you find us on there, feel free to tag us when you're sharing the episode and get the word out there. The username for that is ttheylisten. That is our username across all social media platforms as well as YouTube. And if you're on any of those platforms listening to us, do whatever it is that would please the algorithmic gods. Give us that 5-star rating, or 4 if times are tight and you're trying to budget. Like, comment, and subscribe if you find us on YouTube. And again, to those of you who have already done that, thank you so much. And lastly, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, we have an email address that you can contact us at. That is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. And again, that is if you want to give us any compliments, any feedback, any tips, any pointers, or perhaps even an album review for the future, because we have done requests before and we would like to do them again. And as always, to those of you who have listened, shared, liked, commented, and subscribed, and just been with us on this journey going into 2026, heading from 2025. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, we are not sponsored by any major corporation. We're not part of any major broadcast podcast network. We're just two dudes who love to talk about music, and we love that you are joining us along for the ride. And as always, Ryan, I thank you for being a great co-host and someone we can discuss many things with, particularly music on this show.
And right back at you, man. I feel like we make a good team here. We each bring, different points of view to music discussion here that's very valuable for the listeners to hear. And we each bring different albums to the table. So, we're very, I don't want to say we're a yin and yang approach, but we're definitely not homogenous, music lovers. And that pays out big time with our discussions here. But, and also, if there's any major podcast networks out there that are listening to us, or any sponsorship people out there who are looking for new podcast sponsors, throw us a bone, man. That would be pretty nice. But I will not promote Raycon, so that's a personal bias against me. I don't promote shit products. Anyways, I digress. Getting back into the review, though, so we can finish off a Christmas gift that Phil Spector has brought to us, and get ready for the holiday season here properly. Matthew, are you ready to talk about some childhood trauma, with the next song being I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus?
Boy, you are being extra spicy tonight. A little extra dab of Dijon mustard on the sandwich there. I appreciate that. I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. Once again, we get the Ronettes on this track, and funny enough, this is the final track featuring specifically the Ronettes on this album. And first of all, that intro is recorded very well. Very, very well. Almost too well. Because the way that you hear that little kiss is just kind of it teeters on that tightrope between, oh, that's cute, and oh, that's a little creepy. And again, I think the fact that it's tuned up so high and so clear either does help or does not help, depending on your envisioning of what that feels like. But then you get into the meat of the song, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a song about someone who sees their mom kissing Santa Claus. Because, spoiler alert, Santa Claus is dad. Santa Claus is dad in this song. That's what happens. And to me, the band sounds good. Ronnie Spector is singing fantastically on this track. But my biggest nitpick with this song, it's not my bottom track, but my biggest nitpick with the song is that the arrangement that Spector goes with here feels way too straightforward and way too in line with everything else he's done. And I think the problem with incorporating a song like this on an album like this is that I'm just going to come out and say it. A song like I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, it's a kid song. It's meant for kids. It's meant to be sung by kids. It's meant to be, and I know that this is not the first time nor the last time that an arrangement of this song has sort of faltered by the wayside as far as its core audience and its core spirituality. Like, but yeah, it just feels like, it's a very serious, straightforward arrangement that doesn't feel very silly or fun or sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I feel like when you take away that, like you said, it could very well be a case of childhood trauma being put out onto record. And granted, when you listen to the Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 version of this song, you could make the same exact argument. When you listen to the John Mellencamp version of the song, I don't know what to tell you. But all things considered, this song is good. It's not my bottom track, but it does feel like there's some slight issues with the tone it's trying to set.
First of all, there's a John Mellencamp version of the song.
Oh yeah. There's a John Mellencamp version of this song. It was, I want to say, it was released in the '90s. It's a very odd, weird, upbeat version. I actually think it's kind of good, but at the same time, it's definitely it definitely feels like more of a cash grab than anything else. If I'm being completely honest.
All right, yeah, because that definitely doesn't line up in my hey, this makes sense kind of like realm. So
right.
That's a bit fucked up. But anyways, so yeah, you talk about the arrangement here with "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus," and I didn't have an issue with the arrangement as much as you did. Specifically, I kind of did enjoy the. I actually kind of enjoyed the take on it. Like, I had a hard time describing what the arrangement is specifically trying to go for. Yeah, I know that you said it was a little bit more straightforward. Like, I almost described it as like a salsa kind of groove kind of take, salsa jazz kind of groove. So like that's the best thing I could have came up with. So I did enjoy what was going on there. So that was pretty cool. But I will say that you did mention that intro with that kissing sound effect. I did find it to be a little bit weird, like how it was recorded, like as you did. But like I kind of wrote it off as, let's face it, this song is kind of weird. So like you don't need to nitpick 100% there, in my opinion. But outside of those kind of moments, of those kind of notes, I did enjoy what the vocals were doing here from the Ronettes, and the backing vocals were complementing the main vocals here so well. And that's what we're finding a lot throughout this whole album when we have groups singing. Like the backing vocals are doing like a load of good work to complement and enhance the overall package of the song here. So shout out to backing vocals, specifically from the Ronettes. I feel like they're really doing a really good job throughout this whole LP. The strings echoing the melody during the breakdown is again, it's always a highlight for me. But I feel like with us getting halfway into the record and we're getting into a lot of like it almost seems like rinse, cycle, and repeat with the arrangements here. Like we get different takes on different stuff, and then you get different moments, but it almost seems like there's always like an instrumental break where the strings are, or some sort of horn is echoing the melody of like the main song. So for that, it's just like it's good, but it almost seems like you're setting the AI algorithm prompt to respond in such a way, and it's a good result, but I'm catching that you're doing the same thing over and over again. But yeah, it's not so much that it's not so bad that I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus did land on my bottom track. Well, it isn't my bottom track off the whole album, but it's something I did note nonetheless.
Yeah, again, this my thought about this track is, again, it sounds good. It's performed very well, so I'm not going to knock it for that, because good music is good music. Again, it's not so much that it's a bad track. It just feels wrong. It just feels like something's a little off in its tone. But that's, again, more nitpicking than anything else. And, as far as just listening to this album, as far as listening to music is concerned, it's a good song. That being said, if you're ready, Ryan, I'm going to kick it on over to you for the next track, which is by the Crystals, and that is their rendition of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
So with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like we kind of like my experience listening to the track, like on first concentrated listen, like my first detailed note taking listen through the track here, like the song does start with this nice like little bouncing motif, and it's a very interesting way to kick off the whole track. And I thought initially that motif essentially just fades away into the background and you don't hear from it until like later on in the track here. But upon further listens and concentrations and looking for that motif, it just fades into the background. If you really listen in, the mode, it's still played there in the background. We just have that wall of sound that you described, kind of I don't want to say hiding it, but it adds more layers that you have to sift through. And like if you're gonna be a casual listener, you're not gonna be able to find it. But I do enjoy that motif nonetheless. Yeah. So the feel of the song, though, again, we're kind of getting into similar track kind of territory where the spirit's there. And I know this is Christmas songs, and the spirit of Christmas is pretty much going to be the same for like happy Christmas songs, but I kind of wanted something a little bit different. And if Phil was truly trying to go for something different with every single track here in terms of bringing something new to Christmas music as a whole, like he could have done a little bit more with the arrangement. It's not bad though. Like you, like how you discussed with the previous track that we just got discussing. Like it's a good track to listen to, but within the context of an album, you start to get hey, we're still in familiar territory here with this track here. Like we've been here before. There's other tracks throughout the record that we've discussed so far that are pretty unique, and spoiler alert, there's a couple more tracks coming up here that I feel stand out for one reason or another, but when we get to them, we will get to them. But yeah, I just can't help but notice that, hey, we're getting into similar track kind of territory. Like I would like to describe this as home base for Phil Spector and the crew here. The outside of that, though, the horn swells are very pleasant to the ears, and once again, you get that formulaic strings doing the melody of the song, and bringing everything on home. So that's fine. It's still very nice to the ears. I'm not going to dog it for that, but it is formulaic to a T. The vocals here from the Crystals though are really, really solid, and I do enjoy the backing vocals. But yeah, overall though, this is gonna go in an album track territory. Like it doesn't do a lot to upset me, but it's basically, it is what it is. It's Christmas music to a T for me. This is this is, I don't want to say baby's first Christmas song because that's a weird statement to make, but it doesn't stand out, but it doesn't shoot itself in its foot, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean, and I'm going to be honest. I'm right there with you pretty much every step of the way on this song. I mean, again, I know a little more about Phil Spector than you do, so I can sort of pinpoint that the arrangement they were going for on this track was the song "Then He Kissed Me." That was a big hit for the Crystals before the sound came out. For those of you who've never seen Goodfellas, it's the scene whenever Henry and his wife are entering the restaurant. They do that just continuous shot throughout the whole thing. And it's just great cinema. But here they're singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I do agree with you that the formulaicness of it definitely shines through, as ironic as that is to say. Because this definitely sounds like the same arrangement for I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, except a little bit softer, much like the Bells of St. Mary was a softer version of Frosty the Snowman. And once again, much like I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, it feels like this is one of those songs that robs the song of its youthfulness based on its arrangement. Like, again, I don't think Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is as much of a kid's Christmas song as I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. But at the same time, we've all sung Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We've all it sort of has that very bouncy swing type feel that Gene Autry made famous. And to play the straight fours on it, I think was not necessarily the greatest decision by Phil Spector. But all of that to say that the vocal performances once again are fantastic. The band once again sounds very good, and I'm right there with you. It's basically as formulaic as it gets, but it's a good formula to go off of. So Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is not my bottom track on this album, although it came close. Like first couple listens to it, I was like, okay, now you're just really not trying hard enough. But after listening to it, I was like, yeah, but it still sounds really good, so I'll give it a pass.
Oh man, yeah. That's the interesting thing about doing the review here because, the stuff does sound good, and the bottom tracks here, that the two bottom tracks that I do have within the review here, like I specifically highlighted them for reasons that I thought they were bad tracks, and the bottom track kind of pissed me off. But I digress about that. When I get to that, I'll plead my case for that. I'm curious to see if we share the same bottom track at this rate because we're running the gamut here. We're running out of tracks to talk about. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that is proven to be true. Otherwise, Matthew, are you ready to? We've traversed through much of this album here so far, but we have not properly discussed what is a winter wonderland. So, are you ready to discuss what is a winter wonderland as described by Darlene Love?
Yes, I'm ready to talk about Darlene Love's cover of Winter Wonderland. And for the record, for those of you keeping score, I have two songs remaining in my top three that I have yet to reveal, which are my number one and my number three. Ryan, I believe, has yet to reveal his top two, and both of us have yet to reveal our bottom track. So there's still a lot of ground left to cover as we head into the home stretch of this album. And also, this is another song that is currently on the Hot 100 right now in 2025, despite being recorded in 1963. This is at number 50 on the charts. So this is the 50th most popular song in America. And if I'm going to be completely honest, if not for Billboard's weird rules that restrict Christmas songs to the top 50, there's probably a few other songs on this album that reach the top 100. And the top 100 is probably all Christmas songs at this point. But that, again, another discussion, another day. Billboard is losing their minds. But I will say that what really makes this track work for me is the fact that unlike the last two tracks, which is just very straightforward and, like you say, that sort of salsa groove, here you get a bit more of a buoyancy in the arrangement. It feels bouncy. It has a bit of a pep in its step. And it goes to the swing, which I think is a really good idea for Winter Wonderland, because if you try to play straights on Winter Wonderland, you don't have a good version of Winter Wonderland. And so Spector is smart enough to realize, okay, this is how that song is supposed to go, and this is what we're going to go with. And the harmonies on the chorus, they hit you like a ton of bricks. And I mean that in a good way. Because, again, it definitely feels like what you mentioned with the SpongeBob analogy, where they're trying to be as loud as they can, but they sound good while doing it. And Darlene Love, once again, just sounds great on this track, particularly when she's ad-libbing towards the end of the song with her whoa-ohs and stuff like that. It just sounds so, so good. It did not land in my top three, however. This was another one, much like Frosty the Snowman and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, that is probably in that second tier of songs that just missed the cut. But yeah, Winter Wonderland is definitely a breath of fresh air compared to the sort of the formulaic start to side B.
Yeah, and for me, yeah, like I think I have a little bit of a different take here with Winter Wonderland, and I'm gonna start with you talking about how you said they didn't play the song straight, they had some fun with it. Like I did enjoy the playful melody that you get at the start, and then you get hit with the chorus of the song. But I have a couple criticisms about the song as a whole. Everything just feels big, that Phil Spector big that you've described in a lot of the tracks here, and even in the overview of Phil Spector himself, but it almost feels too big, it's almost trying to shove the Christmas spirit down your throat. So yeah, that was a little bit of a turn off for me. and also like the way that the vocals come across in like what I would like consider to be like the verse section where they're saying da 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 like that little melody like the way the vocals come in and out like it seems like da, 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 like it wasn't recorded effectively in my opinion honestly, but outside of that though we do have some positives that I have found within Winter Wonderland. Like I do enjoy what's going on with the horns, like they're doing some solid work, and Hal on the drums is like doing like his thing. Like I did enjoy what he was bringing to the table, and one thing I did especially enjoy is just the ending with the vocal interplay and how everything kind of layers up and like how everything wraps up. I felt like that was it, like you build up that tension, and like it just sounds so nice. So yeah, this is a track that kind of like I think I have enough standing to maybe throw this into a bottom track kind of territory with my earlier criticisms about Winter Wonderland. But yeah, otherwise, like if it wasn't for like the fact that the horns, the drums are doing like great work, and then ending with that vocal interplay, it does save it from being a bottom track kind of territory. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me, honestly.
That's completely fair, and I can understand. Yeah, I think they could probably have toned down the vocals, or maybe re-recorded them on the verses, as it were. I do agree with you. That was one area where they may not have needed to push it as hard. But aside from that, yeah, I think the arrangement is very solid. And the performances by Darlene and the Wrecking Crew particularly are very good. But I can understand why you're not quite as high on it. So that being said, I am ready to kick it on over to the next track, which is the Crystals in their version of Parade of the Wooden Soldiers.
Yeah, yeah, with Parade of the Wooden Soldiers, we get another track, similar to like the Bells of St. Mary. That Did you know this track before, like listening to this album, doing the review here?
Honestly, not really. Like I have written in my notes, like I guess this is the most definitive version of the song because I don't feel like this is one of those songs that gets covered a lot, or if it does get played a lot. Like to me, this is very much a B or C tier level Christmas song as far as popularity is concerned.
Okay, so I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Like not that I get self conscious about my lack of knowledge of Christmas music, but I at least want to check myself against like my fellow co-host here. But anyways, like diving into the Parade of the Wooden Soldiers and what they have going on with that parade, and is it similar to like the Black Parade? We'll find out. Anyways, I digress. So yeah, here I found the song to be pretty interesting. Like the way things start out with that horn intro with the da 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 da, like it's a different take on what we heard so far in the album here. And like I granted we only have like a handful of tracks left to go, but I did enjoy that caught up my attention right away. And then I did enjoy what the horns and drums were doing, driving the beat. I thought that was very effective. And then you get the switch ups, man. The switch ups that occurred like twice specifically with this track here, where instead of like relying on like the traditional like horns and drums to like drive the feel of the song, you get like that little like nice like percussion kind of groove, like and I very much enjoy that. That works so well, and I don't know if it's for the sake of it being a different sound that just caught my attention, made me really enjoy it. But I feel like the execution was done very well, so I'm gonna give it its proper props. And like this song here, like I just enjoyed my overall experience of listening to it so much, though, because like it's so playful with melody. And like my earlier criticism of like the Bells of St. Mary, where like I felt like I couldn't find the melody if I was like, if my life depended on it, because there was no melody there. But here, like, it's very much playing it to a T, and it's very playful with it. I do like it so much. And like the other thing I want to highlight about the parade of the wooden soldiers here is just the vocals here. Like I felt like they were very solid, and they have a very nice rhythm to it. And like one thing I want to highlight about the vocals here specifically is how like it's at the ends of like some of the phrases, like you get that falling down sensation. Like I thought that was done very effectively, very nicely. So yeah, the only other thing I gotta say about the parade of the wooden soldiers, sign me up for this parade of the wooden soldiers because, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this track did land in my top 3. And it is my second favorite track off the whole record.
You know what? I respect that. I respect that quite a bit because it is very much. First of all, I will echo a lot of the things you said as far as the elements of the song. The part that this song got right that Winter Wonderland didn't quite get right for me was, like you said, it has those switches. It has those ebbs and flows where on the verses, I guess we'll call them that, you get that sort of big swing that Spector is known for. But then you get to the choruses where basically all you have are strings and the percussion block. And it does feel very whimsical. It does feel very playful. And for a song about the parade of the wooden soldiers, that's the kind of thing you would want to hear, a wooden sound. So I think that was a very, very, very good move on their part. And I did appreciate this song for being big where it wanted to be and pulling back where it needed to be. Where a lot of the songs we've talked about so far, even though they've all sounded great, didn't seem to have an off button at certain points, or didn't seem to have really a full appreciation of dynamics. Again, whether it's Winter Wonderland or I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus, where it's just go, 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 go. Here it goes, it slows, it goes, it slows. It does have a very nice balance between the two. And the crystals do sound very good on it. They are matching the playfulness of the track in of itself. So yeah, this is an underdog song. This is an underdog song as far as it being, very well executed, very well in its own right. And like I said, probably the most definitive version of the song. However, it is not in my top 3. It is also not my bottom track either. So,
I'll take that, man. Like I'll like not that we have to agree with like like our top tracks and bottom tracks. Oftentimes in our episodes, like sometimes we come across situations where someone's top track is the other one's bottom track. But I'm glad that I felt like this might have been a little bit of a risk, but I'm glad that you enjoy it, man.
I do too, man. It's again. I think what maybe set it back was the fact that it was in the same key as both I Saw Mama Kissing Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So even though it wasn't formulaic and it definitely broke a lot of its own formula, that little similarity was just enough to make it feel like it was sort of in album territory. But again, very well executed, a very, very nice version of this song.
So, dear listener out there, for those of you who are keeping track at home, 3 tracks left. I've yet to reveal my top track and my bottom track. Matthew is going to have some work here to do because he is yet to reveal his top track and his 3rd favorite track, and he's yet to reveal his least favorite track. So there might be some Fight O'Clock City here, or we might be like singing like Joy to the World because we agree on some of the tracks here. Let's find out, man. So anyways, without any further ado, you ready to talk about the next track here, which is Christmas, Baby Please Come Home?
Yes, Christmas, Baby Please Come Home. The final track of the 3 on this album that is currently sitting on the Billboard Hot 100 in 2025, despite being recorded in 1963. It is currently at number 17 on the Hot 100, so it is in the top 20 right now, sharing time with both Taylor Swift, Alex Warren, Leon Thomas, etc. And there is a reason for this. First of all, the second this song starts and you get that bang of keys, strings, percussion, sleigh bells, it's one of those rare moments in music where the second you hear it, you're just like, okay, we're in for a good time. And what helps that is the bass line by Ray Pullman that sort of is the calm response to that orchestral swell, because you get bang, and then you get ba boom boom bum ba ba bang, ba boom boom bum bum bum, and all of it creating this great intro that leads to that big drum crescendo by Hal Blaine, and you get the background singers, which in this case are the Blossoms and also Cher. Cher's on this track, by the way, singing background, and they are singing that line of Christmas while Darlene Love is giving the performance of a lifetime here, where she is just singing this song about feeling lonely on Christmas Eve. And for the record, this is the only track on this album that has original lyrics. Well, technically one of two, but we'll get to the other one. But this is the only original written for this album by Phil Spector, Ellie Greenwich, and Jeff Barry. And their lyrics about heartbreak on Christmas Eve are just fantastic. And it just creates for this very just never-ending call response, pure pop sound. You get that sax solo, which once again is great. The saxophone solo is just pure kick-ass. And then you get the final chorus, which leads to that call response of please, 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 baby, come home. Like, if you don't hear that and feel like punching a wall in victory, you need to get your blood worked, man. Like, it's just so damn good. Like, to me, like, it's just one of those moments where, you know, every one of Phil Spector's tendencies is clicking in all the right places. And not only that, but once that release from Darlene Love comes down, she's not stopping and the band's not stopping. Like, you get the piano doing those triplets, that dun 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 dun. You get Darlene Love singing continuously until the record stops, and it's just... Do I have to say it? I don't feel like I have to qualify this, but I'm going to anyway. This is in my top 3, and it is not only at the top of my favorite songs on this album, it's one of my favorite Christmas songs of them all. This song rules.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you hear that? Do you hear that noise in the background? It's not... Oh, hold on. Put your glasses back on there, hombre. It's not the 5 o'clock city bell. It's the chimes of the holiday spirit hitting us in unison here, because, ladies and gentlemen, spoiler alert, this song here is also my top song off the whole record. So we are in agreement, man. It's not 5 o'clock city. We're not fighting here. Yes. So, hallelujah. Amen. And for me, like, you know, I'm just going to echo a lot of the stuff that you just said about the song here. And, like, for me, what really makes a good, effective Christmas song is the feeling that you get from it. Like, you know, yes, you can get some piss poor performances from, like, different things, weird arrangements, stuff that doesn't line up. Like, I'm sure that there's some person out there that considers the Bells of St. Mary to be their favorite Christmas song of all time, and they might be offended by my take on it. But hopefully my take didn't piss them off so much, but I digress. But here with Christmas Baby, Please Come Home, just listening to it, you get the feeling of just pure Christmas. And it isn't, like, the best thing I can equate it to is just, like, driving down the highway, the sides of the road are covered with snow. You get that pure white feeling, and you just get that full happiness feeling in your heart listening to it. But yeah, that's the best way I can describe the song here as a whole. But getting into the nooks and crannies about it, like I did enjoy the intro a lot, especially with the chimes leading into that big sound that you get from the vocals in the band, that Phil Spector wall sound that you described to a T. And also, like, one thing that I noticed about this track here is that a lot of the way that the song is structured, you get that horn downbeat, and you get that horn, like, that after that downbeat, it kind of just swells, it just kind of fades away, but you get the boom, and then you get the vocals doing a line, boom, vocals are doing another line. Like, I loved how it was structured there. Like, it was so good, and it was very effective for me. Sax solo is what I would consider to be one of the most iconic sax solos of all time, because it's just so familiar. And, like, otherwise, like, outside of that sax solo being very iconic, like, it's so good. I agree with you that the backing vocals are being used so effectively, like, with it being like Christmas, da, 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 Christmas, like, that's so good. I very much enjoyed how the backing vocals have been used throughout this whole album here so far. And that bridge with that building up of that, please, 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 that you mentioned. One, Sabrina Carpenter probably heard this and said, "Yes, that's an inspiration for a song title." But, anyways, yeah, it's a perfect way to end off the song and, like, just send the listener packing home, really just as, like, happy as somebody who just, like, like, drank like a whole bunch of eggnog and just really has the holiday spirit within them. So yeah, easy number one song off the whole album for me as well. So we're definitely in agreement here, man.
I'm glad we are, because you scared me for a hot second. I was like, there's no way. Like, I don't care how much retail fatigue you would have. There's no way this song could possibly be the bottom track. So I'm glad you and I are in solidarity on it being the best. Because, yeah, it's just, again, the way you describe the surrounding nature of it, being out in the snow and the streets are covered in white, like, you nailed that perfectly. And I can only think of one movie that did that, or at least off the top of my head, which was Christmas with the Cranks, which is not my favorite Christmas movie all time, but they did nail that feeling of the wintertime perfectly. That moment was very, very well executed. So yeah, this song is a classic, and I would say easily this is the most definitive version of the song. No disrespect to the likes of Mariah Carey, or perhaps full disrespect to the likes of U2. That being said, I am ready to move on to the penultimate track on this record, if you are, Ryan, and that is Bobby Sox and Blue Jeans and their version of Here Comes Santa Claus.
Absolutely, man. I'm ready to talk about good old Saint Nick finally arriving to his Super Bowl of the year, man. So, like, Here Comes Santa Claus by Bobby B. Sox and those Blue Jeans. I found this to be a very playful take on a very playful song. The intro had a very nice motif that got you into the mood. Like, I did enjoy what was going on there. And I also did enjoy how the vocals were playful with the melody, and once again you get the backing vocals that are complementing the lead vocals that so very well. So, like, again, shout out to Phil Spector's ability to arrange stuff. Very solid there. But I will say, like, we also get an instrumental break here. I don't feel like it's following in the same kind of formula as the, like, most of the like the rest of the album here, in that it doesn't, like, purely just, like, repeat the melody ad nauseum. It's different enough from the other tracks to stand out, and I did appreciate what was going on there. But yeah, I don't really have many notes about this song here as a whole, other than, like, decent song, fun, playful take on it. I did enjoy the horn swells once again. I thought they were used effectively. Very, very nice to the ears. But yeah, it's, I would say, I don't want to put it in an album track kind of territory. It does enough to like, maybe separate itself from the pack there. But it's very much we're getting to the end of the album, and I this is Christmas to a T. Like, I enjoy it nonetheless. It's a good song.
So my thoughts on Here Comes Santa Claus. Again, I as much as I know about Phil Spector and his arrangements and his output, I will say that Bobby Socks and the Blue Jeans I don't have a whole lot of experience on. And granted, they were not the most popular of Spector's artists. Um, and the reason I bring that up is because from the songs I've really paid attention to, which are pretty much limited to the songs on this album, I consider it to be the group's finest recording. Because you mentioned the playfulness of the arrangement. You're dead on with that because it is a very upbeat arrangement. It's tight. It's packed with sounds. And the way that Bobby is singing, he is singing his ass off big time on this track. I thought it was a really, really, really good performance by him. And not only that, but you get the call and response with the Blue Jeans. When they sing Santa Claus is coming tonight, like that to me is just the exuberance of which they all sing on this track is to me top tier and definitely more of what I would have liked from tracks earlier on this side of the record. And not only that, that trumpet solo, man, it's so good. Like it doesn't like do anything crazy aside from play the melody of the song, but maybe it's just the fact that everybody's singing up so high in the scale that it seems so exuberant and joyous, but it works so well. So Phil Spector gets full marks for getting an arrangement right on this one. He is doing such a good job here. So spoiler alert, we have completed my top three with a bit of a dark horse in Here Comes Santa Claus, and it is at number 3 in my top 3.
That makes me so happy, man, because then not only has our top tracks been the same, but for anyone keeping track at home, our bottom track is the same. But that's fun. But yeah, I enjoy that. I respect 100% the fact that you threw this into your top 3. So at number 3, it's a good fun track. Like I said, like it, I kind of did dock it a little bit for being later on in the record, and at this point in the record, I have kind of heard this, but it's doing enough to stand out from the pack, but it wasn't impactful enough for me to knock out Parade of the Wooden Soldiers like I mentioned, and the other top track for me, which was Marshmallow World, because that really gets me to the holiday spirit 100%. So, but it's a good song nonetheless. So without any further ado, are you ready to close off this review by talking about what probably should have been one of the highlights off the whole record, with it being Silent Night?
Yeah, let's talk about Silent Night, which is performed by what is listed as Phil Spector and artists, and I will let you start the trashing ceremony. Let's have your thoughts first.
So I feel like you might go a little bit harder in the paint than me, but it's just so weird, man. I get what he's going for. He's going for a roll credits kind of hey, giving thanks back to the listener, being hey, thank you for everything. This was a group project here. But honestly, I'm going to put my main thought aside here. You kind of rob the listener of what could be a genuinely beautiful end to the whole record. Consider how it does end off with after Phil gets done yammering on ad nauseum about the recording of the record here. You get vocals that are very beautiful, you get strings that are very beautiful, and how everything just plays out at the very end with that string just ending everything off. Like that would have been phenomenal, dude. But you get a guy who's just basically kind of talking over everything, and like it's just a bit of a drag for me. The main thought I had that put this into a bottom track territory is I did not want to be reminded of Phil Spector's existence as a human being with this track here, and I'm like, oh, that's what you sound like, and you're a horrible piece of shit human being. So yeah, this is the bottom track territory. Out of my bottom track out of principle, but you robbed us out of a beautiful song, man. So I feel like you might go a little bit harder in the paint than me. So I'm gonna flip the table back over to you.
So honestly, I don't think I'm going to go as hard in the paint as you because, um, I do agree with you that he is a terrible person, and hearing his voice is causes for uneasiness. But for the sake of the record, I was kind of willing to not interpret that way. But that being said, first of all, I think you're kind of right about Silent Night being what it could be. I don't think the what we got is what you think it is, though. I think it's just kind of a meh Silent Night, but I think that's because, again, we were robbed of what it could have been as a whole. And I thought it was interesting, maybe not necessarily great, but interesting that the arrangement that Spectre went with was a 4/4 rendition of Silent Night because Silent Night is usually 3/4. Um, but this is a humble brag long before that term came into existence. Like, I know he's trying to feign like thanks and praise to the listeners, but you can hear it in his voice. He is a smug SOB. Like, he's just like, I'm so glad you listened to this thing that you paid for that I created. I created it. Did I mention that I created it? And I guess he has the right to do that because a lot of these songs are great, but to hear him say it does kind of bring things down a little bit. To me, the real sticking point and why this is a bottom track for me is because when he goes through the list of artists, you know, he mentions Bobby Sox, the Blue Jeans, he mentions the Crystals, he mentions the Ronettes, he mentions Darlie Love, he mentions himself. He does not mention his instrumentals, and that pissed me off. Like, dude, the reason you are Phil Spector is because of those people. Those people helped make you you. You may have recruited them, but they did the work. Give them a little love. Like, even if you just said the words, and my instrumentalist, like that would have been fine, but he didn't even bother to do that. It to me that was very, very upsetting. So yeah, that's why Silent Night is also my bottom track from this otherwise very, very solid um, list of songs that create a Christmas gift for you from Phil Spector.
Well, like props to you for kind of like pointing out the fact that he didn't think his instrumentalist. So I didn't catch that. I just heard Phil Spector's voice and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what an inhumane piece of garbage shit person sounds like. Okay, that's awful. But I digress. We've finished talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night. I mean, just Silent Night. That's what the song is called. And for the listeners at home, you probably have noticed that we've had 13 tracks up, 13 tracks have been smacked down. Me and Matt have filled out our scorecards. So there's only one thing left to say about this review here tonight.
We did it, man.
We did it, man. We did it indeed. We got a we got a Christmas gift from Phil Spector, and we opened it up and we discovered what was in there.
Yeah, thankfully it was not a gun. So I will go ahead and go first with my thoughts about a Christmas gift for you. All jokes about how terrible of a human being he is aside, this was 1963 when he was not that yet. And what you get is a man who is presenting his product in a new context that is the Christmas season, and for the most part, nailing it each and every time. Like, this is one of those albums I would put in the same category as maybe Back in Black by AC/DC or Boston's first album, as albums full of songs you've probably heard by accident. Um, where you could probably hear the entire album without actually listening to the album itself, because the songs have become so ubiquitous with the environment in which they thrive. I mean, granted, for Boston and AC/DC, that's classic rock radio, but with this album, it's Christmas time celebrations. And you get classics like Christmas Baby Please Come Home, classics like Here Comes Santa Claus, classics like Sleigh Ride, Winter Wonderland, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, etc. And you get this feeling that these are supposed to be definitive, upbeat Christmas songs that can be played forever. And time has proven that correctly. The watershed moment for me in this album and its impact was I was walking through the Southern Park Mall in Boardman, Ohio with my fiance, and over the loudspeakers of the mall itself was the Bobby Sox version of Here Comes Santa Claus. And then I was passing by a store and they were playing their version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I'm thinking, I'm hearing one Phil Spector song while I'm hearing another Phil Spector song because Christmas time. And to me, that goes to how amazing this album is for the most part. Not all of it. I'm not giving this a 10 out of 10 because there are moments where it does get repetitive and lackadaisical and sort of second rate. But overall, if you're looking for a good time album to listen to during the holiday season and just a good representation of what Phil Spector was at his least criminal, this is the album to go to. So I'm going to give it a solid, strong 8 out of 10.
And for me, before I go into my official, thoughts and feelings about the record, it goes without saying, when you did your overview of Phil Spector, you correctly identified the fact that he was a piece of shit, garbage human being that definitely is rotting in hell somewhere. If we were rating this album basically off the merits of who Phil Spector was as a human being alongside the music, despite how well the music does come across, both you and I would agree that this is a negative 1,000 out of the 10.
Yeah.
We definitely would be in agreement for that. So we're making that both known that would be our official average rating, a negative 1,000 out of 10. If we were going off of that metric.
It might go minus 999.
Okay. But what I will say, though, I'm going to separate Phil Spector as a man for what this album's bringing to the table, because that was the lens of the review that we're going at here. So this album here, though, it's a solid representation of Christmas music as a whole. You get, Christmas Baby Please Come Home, what I described as the encapsulation of Christmas as a whole. You also get fun tracks like Parade of the Wooden Soldiers, which is an interesting take of a Christmas song that I never heard before. And then you get a lot of mushy middle stuff, a lot of stuff that's pretty standard Christmas stuff, but you get interesting takes on them, fine representation of that is coming right out of the gate with the opening track, White Christmas. But also, you kind of get tracks that are pretty subpar in quality, like the Bells of St. Mary. I just never want to listen to that take of that ever again. That's going to be an instant skip for me. And also, in addition to that, the end of the whole record with Silent Night, with Phil just talking over everything, which robbed the listener of what could have been an amazing take on a very classic Christmas track, is noteworthy in its own case. So, yeah, I'm walking away from the review thinking about this album with giving it, the kind of mindset of, it's a solid representation of what Christmas music is as a whole, but I'm not gonna come back to this album whenever I'm really wanting to spin Christmas music. Personally, there's other albums, and when I do my next album recommendation, I'll highlight one specifically that means a lot to me. But in terms of overall ratings, as what this album musically is bringing to the table, not who Phil Spector is as a man, I'm gonna give this album a decent 7 out of 10.
Fair enough. So, listener, if you are keeping track, Ryan has given this album a 7. I have given that album an 8. And when you put it all together and average it out, it comes to a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10 because
Math
works everyone. It does not discriminate. It does not hate. It is simply Math. My next album recommendation, I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm going to go with an album that is very much in tune with this one. It is also a Christmas album, and it is by an artist that is very heavily influenced by Phil Spector, and that is former Hey Listen to This Subject, The Beach Boys, and The Beach Boys Christmas album from 1964. A lot of familiar songs on there, like Little Saint Nick, The Man with All the Toys, their version of Frosty the Snowman, and a couple of other hidden gems on there that I think are very much worth listening to. So the Beach Boys Christmas album from 1964, that is my next album recommendation.
And for me, my next album recommendation is going to be indeed a Christmas album. Shocker. But one Christmas album that does mean I don't want to say a lot to me, but it's one that I will consider to be good Christmas music, and it's a different take on it as a whole. It is also done by a group that we've covered here in the past, and that would be Bright Eyes. Yes. Sad emo boys can make Christmas music after all. And so, you don't know about this album?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, they Connor Oberst and the fine gentleman over at Bright Eyes released a Christmas album back in 2002. It features a lot of what I would consider to be, it's a good mixture of secular and Judeo-Christian music stuff. Well, I guess it's just more Christian music stuff because Judeo anyways, I'm not going to dive into religion. It's not this episode of Hey Listen to This. But you get songs like Away in a Manger, Silver Bells, but also you get Blue Christmas. Connor Oberst doing Blue Christmas. Get out of here, man. That was a good time. And the whole album does actually end off with a reading of the good old Christmas fairy tale, the story of The Night Before Christmas. So excellent Christmas album for me. It's always a pleasant experience for me to dive into, and I mean it is the Christmas season, so I'm definitely do a listen of this record. So yeah, that's my official album recommendation.
Fair enough. So for those of you who have not heard, once again, me and Ryan have given this album by Phil Spector and his artists a 7.5 out of 10 on average. He recommends Bright Eyes' Christmas album. I recommend it from the Beach Boys. And those are recommendations based off A Christmas Gift for You from Phil Spector. What an album, man.
Yeah, man. And I'm glad that we did cover a holiday album. I mean, we've been at this show here for at least a couple holiday seasons here to my track. I think this is our third time around during the holiday season, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I'm glad that we dove into it.
I am too. But now that we've come to the end of the holiday season, because this episode will be released a couple days after Christmas, we will be heading into our next episode into the new year of 2026. And the first episode of 2026, Ryan, is going to be the last episode in your little mini-series, Chapter 11 of 11, What You Got Cooked Up.
So, yeah, for those of you keeping track at home, first of all, just to do a brief overview of what the miniseries was, it was me challenging myself because, in our show here, I tend to pick albums that were released, after the year 2000. So I wanted to challenge myself to pick 11. At the time, it was going to be 10 albums that were released before the year 2000, with the, exception of being our 100th full-length review. But turns out, I'm a man of many tricks, and the album that we chose for our 100th full-length review was actually released before the year 2000, that being Abbey Road by the Beatles. But yeah, for this miniseries, man, we've definitely covered the spectrum of sound. We started out with Britpop with the Suede, and then we've gone through many different decades. We've covered everything from the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. And even 50s, man. So we definitely covered the gamut. I've covered all the most important years in music, in my opinion. And, notable artists, the Beach Boys. Black Sabbath. But I decided to have a little bit of fun with the last chapter in this miniseries, and there's one other huge band that we've yet to talk about. It's a band that, by my calculations, has officially spanned 4 decades in being, active members in the music scene. And yeah, that's basically it. That's all the context I'm going to give you. So, in order for you to pick what album within this band's discography, that was released before the year of 2000, I'm gonna harken back to the first chapter in this miniseries, in that being the Suede album that we covered, and specifically the track within that album being Sleeping Pills. Do you remember that track and how they were talking about, water signs and air signs?
Not until you just said that.
Okay. So, the way I'm going to have you choose what is essentially going to be our very first review of 2026, I'm going to have you pick between the 2 signs. Are you going to choose the water sign, or are you going to choose the air sign?
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. This is not where I was expecting this to go. I'm going to choose the water sign.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we started in the UK with this mini-series here, and we are going back to the UK to finish it off. And the group that we're going to be talking about in our next episode of Hey Listen to This is going to be another huge band in modern musical history. And that band is one band that is fronted by Mr. Tom York himself. And that band is Radiohead. And the album that we're going to be discussing next week in Hey Listen to This is going to be their second studio album, released in 1995. And that album is called The Bends.
You know what? That's not what I was expecting, but you know what, man? I am ready to talk about some Radiohead. They're a band that I've never really truly dove into, but I'm ready to take on that challenge for this last chapter of the miniseries.
It's going to be a beefer of an episode, man. Radio has a lot of stuff going for it. And, with that album specifically, we're going to... It shifts the group into, a different direction. But we will discuss that we'll discuss that album, obviously, next week. But, as for this episode here, man, I'm going to just say... It is truly difficult at this time to find the words that fully express my feelings about the review that you've just heard. A project that has been in the planning for many, many days. First, I want to thank my co-host Matt. He has worked tirelessly alongside me in the production of this episode, fueled by our shared desire to bring something new and different into the conversation surrounding Christmas music, and to this podcast, which has become such a vital part of our lives. But of course, obviously, our deepest thanks goes to you, dear listener. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our passion for music, and specifically for the album we discussed today. As I sit here, I'm incredibly proud of the work Matt and I have accomplished throughout this 2025 calendar year. May we wish you the very merriest of Christmases and the happiest of New Year's. Thank you so much for letting us spend a part of your holidays with you.
Guilty on all 12 counts.